The mysteries of the Egyptian pyramids have been stirring the minds of researchers and anyone interested in ancient Egypt for centuries. Especially, many mysteries are hidden by the three pyramids, which are located in Giza, not far from today's Cairo. So, sit back, we will dive into the mysteries of ancient Egypt. Only recently, scientists discovered that the Pyramid of Cheops has not only ventilation shafts, but also hidden rooms, to get through which it is impossible for man. Now, to elaborate. First of all, the whole Pyramid of Cheops, which height is 138 meters, is pierced by four narrow slanting passages with cross-section of 20 centimeters, which are considered as ventilation. Secondly, it is proved that two shafts from the pharaoh's tomb go outside. Why would sealed tombs need ventilation? Not to mention the fact that the sloping shafts made it much more difficult to erect such a massive structure. Thirdly, the two shafts that seemed to be the ventilation for the border of the pharaoh's wife, not only did they not go to the surface, they did not even reach the tomb itself. That is, they were sealed passages. Since the mines are quite narrow and stretch quite far, it was only possible to shed some light on the question of what was there in 1990. The robot, specially built for this task, managed to crawl down the shaft for 63 meters and only found an obstacle in front of it, a fireplace door with two metal knobs, which, as you have already guessed, the robot could not open. In 2002, another robot got to the door, drilled a hole in it, put the camera through and saw another door 20 centimeters away, exactly the same. I didn't have enough drill bit to get to it. 9 more years later, they finally built a robot called the Jedi, which had a more confident training for this kind of research. So the Jedi robot got to the same place as its predecessor and just looked more precisely at the little room between the two doors. On the floor is a kind of hieroglyphs, the meaning of which is not yet clear. Also, a special moving camera on the robot turned around and showed the door on the backside. It is well polished, has decorative hinges. In other words, it is not a stone that would prevent debris from getting into the shaft, it is a door that someone has used. Probably pulled it by its hinges. But how? But here's the strangest thing, for some reason the pictures taken by the robot published are not all. For example, it is unknown what was depicted on the ceiling. Why the robot never penetrated the second wall. Moreover, for some reason the right wall of the secret room, after 9 years, received 2 longitudinal scratches, and the upper wall of the ceiling a deeper cut. As if it had been pinned into it. Note that no robot had officially entered the chamber itself. Is the pyramid research officially artificially frozen or hushed up? Who knows? How old are the pyramids of Egypt? The science still has not defined the exact date of their construction. Scientists differ in their definitions not even by centuries, but by millennia. According to the traditional version, the pyramids are 4,500 years old. Such age was shown by studying by a method of radiocarbon decay, but the matter is that radiocarbon analysis is capable to define age only at organic substances. Thus the age of the pyramids was determined by the remains of wood left by the ancients, but scientists have found many oddities that leave questions about the age of the pyramids open. For example, the famous Sphinx is generally believed to have been built during the time of Pharaoh Cheops in the 25th century BC. However, 150 years ago a so-called inventory stela was found at Giza, on which it was written that Cheops had only ordered the restoration of the Sphinx, not its construction. Also in the 90s it was proven that the furrows on the body of the Sphinx were traces of rain erosion, and that there had not been rains that could have done this in Egypt for at least 8,000 years. And yet the Sphinx is a much later construction than the pyramids. The most interesting is that immediately after the disclosure of this fact, the Egyptian authorities organized an urgent restoration of the Sphinx. As a result, all traces of erosion were either hidden or destroyed. Simultaneously with the restoration, the inventory stela was also removed from the National Museum, but scientists found another method of determining the age of the pyramids. Astronomers claim that the pyramid copies the arrangement of stars in the constellation of Orion, which was observed, attention, 12,500 years ago. The Great Pyramid, the original Chephron pyramid in size, take the place of the two brightest stars in Orion's belt, and the smaller Menkaure pyramid is displaced from the axis of two neighboring ones, quite like the third and the smallest star of the belt. It turns out that the pyramids may be one of the evidences of some advanced civilization about which we know nothing. Meanwhile, the specified epoch fits into the time frame of existence of the legendary Atlantis. Although no one takes it that the civilization that built the early pyramids was really the Atlantean civilization. The tomb of Tutankhamun kept its secrets for over 3,000 years. And the Egyptian Valley of the Kings is hardly an event in the history of archaeology comparable in importance to the discovery of this tomb made in 1922 by Howard Carter. It is interesting that even in ancient times, the burial chamber was penetrated at least twice by unknown persons, but the tomb was not looted. It is difficult to overestimate the significance of this discovery for world history, but the discovery had a dark side. Already in the first stage of research appeared the legend of the curse of the pharaoh. Sometime after the discovery, Howard Carter found a clay tablet in the tomb, which stated that over anyone who dares to disturb the peace of the pharaoh, death will stretch its wings. Talk of this curse came after Lord Carnarvon, the leader of the expedition, died of a trivial mosquito bite on April 5, 1923. Other deaths, no less mysterious, followed. In 1930, 7 years after the discovery, only Howard Carter survived out of all the witnesses. There is still debate as to whether this is the purpose of the deaths by chance. Is there a connection between the two? Howard Carter himself believed that modern people could not believe in such mystical nonsense as the curse of the pharaoh. The chain of deaths, in his opinion, was merely an accident. In the scientific community, as opposed to a logical explanation of the curse, tried to logically justify the reasons for such a mass death of people who have been in the tomb or come into contact with the mummies. The main theory is that the ancient Egyptian priests may have applied poisonous substances to the walls or the sarcophagus, and the chain of mysterious deaths can be explained by the action of unknown poisons, which the scientists unwittingly came into contact with. But this theory has not yet been confirmed. In the 19th century, there was an assumption about the uniqueness of the Cheops pyramid, also called the Great Pyramid. Its supporters asserted that it was built by the will of the highest intelligence by aliens from the worlds with more perfect civilization than on the Earth. Consider yourself. When measuring the Cheops pyramid itself, it turned out that the perimeter of the pyramid divided by the double height gives the exact number pi to within 1 in 100,000. It is interesting that the sacred measure of Egypt's length, that is, the pyramidal inch, is 1/billionth of the Earth's orbit traveled by it in 24 hours. By a strange coincidence, the pyramidal inch is equal to the English inch, which secret origin is also not revealed yet. Diagonal of a pyramid give absolutely precisely its direction on a meridian, and more accuracy of this direction on theoretically North Pole than that which have achieved at building of the Paris Observatory has been reached. And other such oddities abound. All these coincidences are too frequent to be explained by blind chance. On the other hand, how can one explain such completeness of knowledge of the ancient Egyptians and the accuracy of their measurements, taking into account the discoveries of recent times? A mystery that is unlikely to ever be solved. Scientists suggest that the Egyptian pyramids were built of monolithic blocks of stone. As if thousands and thousands of slaves toiled in quarries, cutting monoliths weighing from 2.5 to 15 tons, then dragged them to the construction site on sledges, and finally, with the help of ingenious lifting machines or some giant inclined mounds, 15-ton blocks were dragged to a height of many tens of meters. Prominent Egyptologists believe that the ancient Egyptians successfully moved monolithic blocks of increasing weight, some of which reach, attention, 70 tons. Scientists have not yet been able to give an unequivocal answer as to how the Egyptians dragged such monsters over insane distances. Besides, it has been noticed for a long time that in Cheops pyramid, in some places the thickness of seams, which at first sight seem to be simple scratches, is equal about half a millimeter. Can you imagine how much effort was required for such adjustment of blocks often weighing many tons? There's no explanation that Egyptologists can give. But many years ago, Professor Joseph Davidovich of Bern University gave an interesting hypothesis that the pyramids could be made of concrete. To prove it, he cited the results of his chemical experiments and visual studies of ancient artifacts. Pay attention to the slab. The surface of the block is covered with a fine mesh. In Davidovich's opinion, it is a trace of a mat which has been put on the internal surface of a formwork box. The concrete version would explain how the blocks weighing 70 tons ended up in the pyramid structure and the absence of gaps between the blocks. If the upper block was made of concrete right on the spot, there would be no gap between it and the lower block. The given theory did not spread in the scientific environment because geologists and paleontologists who studied composition and structure of pyramids blocks repeatedly noted that blocks are processed blocks of natural sedimentary deposits. So the mystery of technology of building of pyramids still is not solved. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and write what you think about it. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support is very important to me.